Welcome to Book Sandwiched In. My name is Dorothy Miner, and I have the privilege of serving as president of the Friends, and I'm a member of the Book Sandwiched In committee. Book Sandwiched In is sponsored by the Friends of the Tulsa City-County Libraries. We have complimentary coffee and water and some snacks to my right. We hope you all are members of the Friends. If not, you'll find membership forms over there on my right as well. We invite you to bring your lunch or purchase lunch at the new Ilum Cafe on the first floor. Our next book talk will be on November 20th, and the book is Mad Honey. Today, I'm happy to introduce Carissa Kellerby, who has worked for the Tulsa City-County Library for over 12 years, and the last 3.5 years as the branch manager of the Jinx Library. She also moderates author events and leads a book club at Magic City Books. Carissa is as much of an animal lover as she is a book lover, and currently has 3 dogs and 2 cats. One of her favorite hobbies is jigsaw puzzling while listening to audiobooks with her partner. Please welcome Carissa.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today. Once I figure out how to get that off of there, we'll get started with the slides. But so how many, I just want to see, how many of you have read this book already? Okay, about half. Okay, good. I will not be giving away any spoilers. So for those of you who have not read the book yet, don't worry about that. Gotta love technology. All right. So, Remarkably Bright Creatures. It came out a little over a year ago, and it is a delightful book that I'm going to share a few little things about. I liked it so much that I read it twice this year within almost as many months. So, and I enjoyed it even more the second time. So, I am very excited to share this with you all today, and I hope if you haven't read it yet, that you immediately go upstairs and add it to your hold list. All right, so I'm going to start out telling you a little bit about the story. So overall, the story is told from multiple perspectives from mainly 3 characters, but there's also a 4th character who gets the spotlight a few times. And all of these characters have several things in common. Most of it is they are searching for some kind of meaning, not just to life, but to their own life. And so they're searching, they're stuck on something in their past that they're either trying to reckon with or get past in some way. And they each end up finding some sort of family member, whether human or not, and making those different connections that are just part of an unconventional family. So breaking from, what you would normally consider family members. So the main character is a woman called Tova, and I'll get to her slide in a little bit. But she is experiencing some loss in her past, as well as another character, and they are attempting to sort of grapple with the different decisions that either they have made or that someone else has made, and how that has affected them, and in some ways kind of made them stuck where they're currently at, where we are in the story. And so it's how the choices that they have made have led them to the current spot where we find them in. And there are several unknowns throughout the story that the reader kind of gets hints about before the characters themselves. So as you move through, there are little nuggets of things that you can try to put together, or you can kind of not try to figure it out yourself, depending on how you like to read books, and kind of discover things as the characters do. But overall, this story is bittersweet, but hopeful. So it kind of goes through all the feels. You will definitely feel sad, maybe even cry at a few points, but you will also laugh, and you'll leave the book with a sense of peace and just kind of hope for the future of these characters and possibly your own future as well. So a little about the setting. So it's set in Sol Bay, Washington, which is a coastal town that is fictional. And it's based on like a former tourist town that's kind of past its boom. And the Sol Bay Aquarium is kind of the heart of the story, not necessarily the heart of this town, but it serves as a connecting point for the three main characters. And I'll get into that a little bit. And it means something different to each of the three main characters as well. So we will start with Marcellus, who is the octopus. And his sections of the book are different from the other characters. It is first person, and he addresses the reader directly. So he is very much an escape artist. So the main sort of plot device of this book is at night, he roams around the aquarium. So he is able to get out of his tank and will go around collecting objects that he finds on the floor. So he has a little spot in his cave, in his tank, where he's collected all sorts of things, and he's categorized these things as well. So he's got keys, he's got earrings, he's got pacifiers, but of course he doesn't really know all of what the real names of these things are. So it's entertaining to hear him he's pretty matter of fact in the way that he sees the world and describes things. As great Pacific octopuses or octopus, you can say either one is correct for a plural of an octopus if you were curious. He is very intelligent. So he has a lot of things figured out before really any of the other characters do. One of the things that he can differentiate is the fingerprints of people who, touch the glass, put their face up there. He can differentiate that. He can also differentiate people's ears, like their features or their way that they walk, to be able to tell if certain people are actually related to each other or not, which is very interesting. And because of his observations, he's a very wise old soul. And so he's very much a philosopher in this book. And so it starts out with one of his chapters, and his chapters, I'm going to hold this up so maybe the viewers can see as well. They have a little octopus in the corner, and it starts with day 1299 of my captivity. So that is your first introduction into this story. So his are kind of shorter. They're just like a page and a half or so, every once in a while scattered throughout the book. And he is counting the days of his captivity in this aquarium. So the lifespan of Great Pacific Octopus is about 3 to 5 years, what I saw from the Monterey Bay website. And if you don't know what the Monterey Bay Aquarium is, they have live cams on a lot of their exhibits. So I recommend checking out that website. It's just Monterey Bay Aquarium. And you can see an octopus in motion. I thought about trying to attach it here, but I didn't want to give Tara any more of a headache with technology than we may already experience. But I highly recommend it because, you've all sort of can imagine how an octopus, just moves with its tentacles. But it's very fascinating to see. Great Pacific octopuses, also can change color based on their surroundings. They also do that to communicate to other animals and to other octopus. I'm just gonna interchange how I say the plural as we go along. And these are actually, they're very solitary creatures. So that's also, they're expensive for aquariums to have. So that's one reason they only have one, but they're also, they don't necessarily need to have another octopus around in order to live a full, satisfied life. Which is very interesting because scientists aren't actually sure how octopus got so intelligent. They can solve puzzles. They can do all kinds of things. So a lot of the things that Marcellus says that he does in the novel with puzzles, he can open locks, open doors, things like that. That is something that they can actually do. So, and scientists thought that the social aspect of interacting with other creatures is what builds and what develops intelligence. And so it's kind of a mystery as to why and how octopus became so intelligent. So it's really delightful to see that sort of personified in a very anthropomorphic way throughout this book. And so I heard one person say that one person in their book club had trouble reading this book because of that aspect of it, because him seeming so human and having the, you know, those sort of thoughts and things. But to me, that's what made this book really delightful, is because if you've got this animal who is, you know, more intelligent than the humans in this story and is trying to kind of nudge them and help them along to be like, all right, guys, come on, let's get with the picture. Like, I only have so much time for you guys to get, you know, your act together. So it's very entertaining little interjections, and it does very much lighten up some of the sadder moments in the book as well. And so Marcellus was rescued when he was a juvenile. He was found injured, and so he was brought to the aquarium. So he's been there for a very long time, and so he knows that his lifespan as a living being is limited. And so that's another reason why he is counting these days, because he knows that he only has so many days left. And so that sort of trying to get meaning out of this life that wasn't what he expected because of a decision that someone made to rescue him instead of just leaving him alone, which he would have preferred. So that he could live out his days in the wild doing his own thing. He's working on sort of coming to terms as to what being in captivity for most of his life means. So that is Marcellus. And then the central character in this novel is Tova Sullivan. So she is a Swedish American. She moved to the United States with her parents and her brother when she was very young, and has grown up most of her entire life in Sol Bay. The house that she lives in was built by her father, and it's it seems very cozy, very very unique in the way that it was constructed. She talks about playing with her brother in the house, and it just seems like it was a very delightful childhood. And at this point in her life, she has been widowed. Her husband passed away, I believe, like a year or two before the story picks up. And so she's, you know, adjusting to being alone in this house now. And she also had a tragedy in her past. Her son passed away mysteriously when he was only 18 years old. And so that is the loss that she's been trying to grapple with. It was ruled a suicide, but she knows deep down in her bones that that is not what happened. And so that's one of the mysteries that we kind of go through in this story, is what actually happened to Eric, her son. And so because of her upbringing and her culture, she is very stoic. She doesn't get very emotional about things. She's very practical. She's very pragmatic. And she also loves to be very orderly and tidy. So her job at the Sol Bay Aquarium, where she works, is she is the janitor. So she goes in after closing, cleans everything. She's very meticulous. She has a certain way that things should be done, certain products that she believes should be used, and that's what she uses. And so that's how she encounters Marcellus. She finds him outside of his tank, caught in some power cords. And so obviously she's startled to see this giant octopus, which I forgot to mention, their tentacles can be between 7 and 13 feet long. So he's a big boy. And so she sees this thing under a table, just trying to free himself from this cord. So she realizes what's happening, and very slowly she leans down and she, is talking to him, like, it's okay, I'm just gonna unplug this cord and then you'll be free. And so she does, and he goes back to his tank in his little octopus way. And then she discovers that how he gets in and out is through this gap that's probably about this big, that he is able to squish himself and get through. So this becomes a nightly thing. Now that she has discovered Marcellus's secret, they start to develop a friendship. And one thing she had already been doing was, as she would go past the different animals' tanks, she would greet them. And as she left, she would say goodnight to them. And so she is just even though she has, what could be considered maybe a cold or very, rigid persona, she's very kind-hearted. She is she's very open-hearted as well. She also attracts another animal to her house. A cat just shows up on her doorstep and is like, hey, this is where I live now. And so the cat just comes in and is part of her household from then on. But in line with her character, she doesn't name the cat. It's just Cat is the cat's name. So, she's very nurturing in her own way. And so the animal-human bond is the strongest between Tova and the different animals that she encounters. And so then we come to the next character. So Cameron is 30-something years old, and he lives in California. He was abandoned by his mother when he was 9, so he's been raised by his aunt since then. And so that's sort of the decision that somebody else made for him, that he's been trying to grapple with for his entire life as to why she left. He knows the reasons why she left, but then he doesn't know why she didn't come back. She presumes that she's still alive somewhere, but he doesn't know because they haven't heard from her. But she had trouble with substance abuse. And so many of the characters around him say, well, she did the kindest thing, by making sure you were in a place where you, would be taken care of and have the things that you needed. But that's not really good enough for Cameron. He needs more of an answer. He also doesn't know who his father is. And so that is one of the things that he's trying to figure out, sort of where his mother met his father, because he does know that she was in Sol Bay. She ran away when she was in high school and finished high school in Sol Bay. And after that, she came back pregnant. So he goes to Sol Bay to kind of figure out his origin story. And he also, I didn't want to put this in writing, but he's kind of a man baby. He's kind of too smart for his own good and has trouble keeping jobs because of that. It's not necessarily that he thinks he's too good for things, but he is one of those people who, it doesn't say particularly that he has a photographic memory, but he has an incredible mind for facts and figures and figuring things out. He remembers everything that he's read. So it's pretty easy to assume that he probably does have something close to a photographic memory. So he's just extremely smart, but doesn't apply himself to anything. He's just sort of a loaf in a way. And one example of kind of how this is he's one of those who has a band. He's got a band that's called, I never got the explanation for this. It's called Moth Sausage. So moth, like, yeah, moth. And so he has these two friends that are in this band with him, and these two friends are married and they're about to have a baby. And so his friend says, you know, I think we're gonna have to break up the band. And poor Cameron doesn't understand why they need to break up the band. Like, you know, he gets babies, you know, kind of are a big deal, and, you know, maybe take some extra work or something, but that doesn't mean that you got to break up the band. So he whines about that for quite a while. And I'm really bashing him right now, but he is very much a sympathetic character, but he also whines a lot. And, you know, you kind of are just like, wake up, dude. Like, start doing some stuff for yourself. So he is definitely, I would say, on the biggest journey of this book, as far as not only trying to figure out his origins, but just kind of what direction he wants out of life and what he wants to do. So when he gets to Soul Bay, he has this whole ordeal with the cheap flight that he booked has lost his luggage, and, you know, all of these bad things are happening to him. But none of the bad things that happen to him are ever his fault. So that's another thing that he claims a lot. But so he gets there and he knows that he's probably going to have to stay for a bit to really figure things out. The good thing about Soul Bay is it is a small town, and so everybody knows everybody, and everybody has been there forever. So it's easy to sort of ask questions and, you know, figure out who knew who, and, you know, all of that sort of thing. But he's invested in finding out what the story is with his mother. He also finds a class ring that his mother had that she left for him, and it has some initials in it. And so that's another little piece of the puzzle that he is trying to solve. So he ends up getting a job at the aquarium as well. And so he starts out working as kind of a handyman around the place. But then Tova ends up injuring herself and has to wear a boot for a while. And so he ends up taking over her cleaning duties in the evening as well. Well, of course, Tova being Tova, she has to go check and make sure he's doing a good job. And he is not. Not only is it not to her standards, but he can't even put a trash liner in correctly. So they end up forming a friendship, and she kind of takes him under her wing and tries to instill in him a little bit of personal accountability for, you know, you may not think that you have an effect on other people, but you do. Like, if you put this trash liner in incorrectly and somebody puts trash in it, it's just going to go all over the bin. And so if you do it this way, so teaching him to kind of have a little patience and sort of pay attention to the details of finer points in life. And so together they start to figure out some things. And another character, this is the one who's kind of he's more of a secondary character, but he's very essential to the plot. So he is, I would say, in some novels, he would be considered a plot device, but the author does a really good job of making him a very well-developed character in himself. He's got his own backstory. He's got, you know, his motivations for, you know, why he's doing the things he's doing, but the way that he is a plot device is, so he owns and works in the grocery store that's in this town. So he is the means by which a lot of people hear the news about what's going on in Sol Bay. So he very much is good-natured, you know, does not do any of this maliciously, but he also is maybe not the person that you want to tell secrets to, because he will divulge certain things with the aim of trying to help, and it doesn't always work out that way. But he's a very funny character. He is also, I put elderly rocker, like he was one of those, you know, following the band, a groupie sort of a deal, and he's got, you know, some pretty exclusive memorabilia and things like that. So he and Cameron bonds pretty well, and Cameron ends up staying with him for a little while. But he's also a romantic at heart. So he came to the United States following a girl, so who was also following a band, I think. So he is very much a, you know, follow your heart, follow your whimsy, and everything will turn out okay eventually sort of person. And he has a little crush on Tova, which you'll just have to see if something comes of that or not. But he is a really great character for helping to connect some of the pieces for Cameron as he's trying to discover who his father might be. And I'm gonna stop there with the characters because I don't want to give anything else away on that. But it's a very delightful book overall. There are, like I mentioned, some little mysteries that you'll get different clues about. And Marcellus, of course, figures out everything before any of the people do, and tries to leave his own little hints for them to pick up on, you know, what the deal is. So super, super delightful. So a little bit about the author. So this is a debut novel, and it's very remarkable for a debut novel. It's one of those that it hits the shelves and it was already up there. So it was picked for Jenna's Read with Jenna book club, and that's Jenna Bush Hager. And so she added it to her list of amazing books, which really helped with the marketing as well, which is also very remarkable for a debut novel to get that sort of, you know, stamp of approval. And the author said that the story was inspired by a video that she saw of an octopus trying to escape its enclosure. And then the story just expanded from there. So it started with the octopus, as it should. And you can really tell that he is really the heart of the book, even though his little chapters are small. He very much carries the novel. And the author is working on a second book. She is not necessarily calling it a sequel to this one, but it is set in the same world, and she is going to use some of the secondary characters or some of the characters that might have been mentioned once or twice, but had to be scrapped in the end. So, which I'm very excited about because she's created just a nice little world. It's, you know, realistic, you know, aside from, you know, the octopus who talks to you throughout the book. Which, you know, hey, I find that realistic. So I'm really excited to see what she does with some of the other characters in this book. So I have a couple of other slides to show you before we get to questions. So I like to see what the book covers look like in other countries. So I was able to find some UK covers, which I find very interesting. I think I still like ours the best. But the middle one is very curious to me because, so one of the things in the book is Tova collects what are called Dulla horses. So they're wooden horses that are painted these bright colors. And she has a collection of them that came from her, maybe her grandmother. They've been passed down. And her son, when he was younger, broke one of her favorite ones. And so this is a picture of the broken one. But you know, it's a book of, also a book about an octopus. So I thought it was interesting that they put that on the cover. Right, it makes you think that the creature is the horse. And there's a delightful, and I won't spoil this for you either, but the title itself, it has a very delightful, what's the right word? It pops up in the book a couple of times, and the way she connects it together is very delightful. So you'll just have to read it to see who or what the remarkably bright creatures are. And then I can't talk about a book without also recommending some other books. So I'll leave this up here so you guys can either take a picture of it or write down some books. But these are some other things that just have kind of the same feel that this book does. I was talking with Dorothy about lessons in chemistry. It also has an animal in it who talks to you. But it's a dog in this instance. And the dog, of course, is smarter than all the people in the book, and is just trying to make sure that people do what they should do, which is what all good dogs do. And then I put Lily and the Octopus on here because I listened to the audiobook of Remarkably Bright Creatures, and it has two readers. One reads the main story, and then one reads Marcellus. And the guy that reads the Marcellus is like exactly who you would picture the octopus voice to be. And so that reader also reads Lily and the Octopus. And it's also, you know, about a dog and his owner. And again, you'll have to read it to figure out what the octopus has to do with all of that. But it's a very good read. And well read by the narrator. So yeah, I'm open for questions. Thank you. So the countries that the other two covers were, they're both UK covers. So one is their print version, and then the other one is the Kindle version. So like the background and stuff. So I made the background on Canva. And so I just kind of pulled some different things together, and Canva has a great thing where you can kind of like capture the same coloration in like a book cover. And so that kind of helped me to get things that didn't clash too much with the cover of the book. But yeah, I just kind of played with it until I liked it. And Canva in no way sponsors this event. Canva. So it's like canvas, but without the S. Yeah. That's a great question. How did he breathe outside of his enclosure? He didn't. So I didn't verify this fact, but in the book, he is able to go without water for 18 minutes. So he doesn't feel great before that, but he knows that he can still get back to where he needs to be if he gets back there within 18 minutes. So there are a few close calls in the book. But yes, that's a great question. So it allows them to get from pool to pool. Ah. Excellent, thank you. So yeah, they usually hunt at night, and they are hunters as well. And so that's why they're not normally not seen out of water, but they can definitely go without for what is a significant amount of time to me. I couldn't be underwater for that amount of time, for sure. Yeah.
I think this is the same way I did, but Marcellus is the most open and generous character in the book, because everybody else is red, everybody else, they think, oh, I should do that, but no, I'm not gonna say that, oh, I should, but oh, no, everybody else pulls back because of their past wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's his generosity that gets them to open up to each other. And,
Yeah.
I'm really happy to see that she's doing another book in the same location. I'm a Californian, and I grew up in areas areas like that, and I've visited that part of Washington, and it's gorgeous, and it sounds like an idyllic place you want to live.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. So we have someone here who's very excited to see another book in that world, who's from kind of that area and been in that area. And Marcellus, as she pointed out, is a very generous and open character. Whereas some of the other characters are a little more closed off, and they think that they should do something or should say something, but hold back in the end. And so Marcellus kind of helps them to sort of be a little bit more generous and more open with themselves. I think that's a really great point, and I very much agree with that too. Any other questions? It is very cinematic. I have not heard specifically whether it's going to be made into a series or a movie, but I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's very possible. And I agree, it would make a really great one. Yeah.
There is a film that's called March-April and Oct.
Yes, and I believe that documentary is on Netflix. Is My Octopus Teacher? Yeah, and I believe, I can't remember whether it won or not, but it was nominated for Academy Award in Best Documentary Film. I haven't seen it yet, but reading this book makes me want to. Yeah. Any other questions? Do we have any questions on Zoom? No? Okay. Yeah.
But did any of the humans ever realize
So the question was, do any of the humans realize that the octopus is communicating with them? Yes, they do. Some do. That's all I'll say.
Essentially, they're a lot slower.
Yes, always slower than he is at figuring things out. He can also read, so yeah. Yeah, great. There's no scientific evidence saying that they really do actually know how to read, but from what it sounds like, I wouldn't put it past them. Any other questions? All right, thank you all so much.